Ecology is just a scientific word for how plants and animals live together. There are no supermarkets to buy food from, so nature has devised their own survival plan. Put simply, the sun provides energy for the plants to grow. The way they take energy from the sun is through chloroplasts in the leaves, which is then converted into energy in order for the plant to grow. This is called photosynthesis. Herbivores, animal vegetarians, eat the plants. These are primary feeders. And then other animals, carnivores, non-vegetarians, eat them. These are secondary feeders. Some animals will eat plants and animals, and these are called omnivores. Squirrels actually eat insects as well as seeds, so they are an example of an omnivore. Scavengers obligingly clear up any leftovers, whether it's dead leaves or animal remains. This is an example of a simple food chain. And then there is fungi, which is neither an animal or a plant. Unlike plants, they cannot get their energy from the sun. Instead, they feed from a living plant, or from dead and rotting matter. The main part of the fungus, called the mycelium, is underground and consists of threads that grow through the soil or host plant. The part you see is the fruiting body, that is, it produces tiny spores, the equivalent of seeds. A woodland can only produce so much food, and therefore competition is fierce between the individuals of the same species, and also between different species who compete for the same food and territory. The food supply determines the carrying capacity of an ecosystem. That is, how many animals of all species it can support. It's natural for any tree or plant species to have good or bad seed years. When the crop is poor, the available food supply is less, so fewer animals will survive initially. But if after a good seed crop the numbers rise again, prey species higher up the food chain will experience a rise in numbers. A rise in higher predators will mean fewer of the species lower down the food chain will survive, as they have been eaten. But as the prey species decreases, there will be less food for the predators, so their numbers will decrease, and the number of prey species will rise again. Of course, an ecosystem is much more complex than this, so we will look at a simple food web. Let's start with a deciduous woodland on the Isle of Wight. The island only has red squirrels, who live at around 1 per hectare, which is a much lower density than grey squirrels, who can live at perhaps 7+ per hectare. So the greys will have a greater impact on other species as less food is available to them if the grey squirrels are eating it. Deer live in some woods on the UK mainland and feed on buds and leaves of deciduous trees and shrubs, such as bramble and hazel coppice. So, as you will see when we start to build a food web, this has an impact on the food supply available to the other species. This is our woodland with mixed tree species suitable for a whole range of plants and animals. The insect population is doing well. Bees are pollinating plants. Gnats are feeding bats and birds. And squirrels have insects to supplement their diet. Slowworms living on the edge of glades are feasting on slugs and worms. There is plenty of leaf litter for the worms, so they are all thriving. The birds and squirrels are eating seed and distributing it to other parts of the wood, thereby planting another tree or shrub. And the birds that are at the top of the food chain, such as buzzards plus other animals, foxes, badgers, hedgehogs, squirrels are finding food. But, as happens sometimes, the autumn seed crop is poor. This means there is less food for seed-eating birds, squirrels and mice. The number surviving until the next spring drops. In the spring, there are still plenty of insects for bats and surviving birds. But the birds such as owls, sparrowhawks and the buzzards have less food as they eat mice, squirrels and small birds. They struggle and will perhaps raise less young, so their numbers drop. Suppose the following winter is harsh and many insects die. This is less food for the bats and birds, so their numbers will drop. A good autumn seed crop then follows and feeds more birds, squirrels and mice, so numbers can rise again, providing more food for the higher predators. Rotting plant leaves are eaten by, among others, earthworms. When the worm dies, they are consumed by decomposers, that is, smaller insects or scavengers. Worms and caterpillars are eaten by birds, badgers and foxes. Foxes also eat fruit. Birds also eat plant material, for example seeds. All animals die and are consumed by the scavengers and decomposers. If our model of a wood had grey squirrels instead of red squirrels, then far less birds and small rodents would survive, as the greys will take the nuts, seeds and insects that they would eat. And they take birds' eggs, and sometimes small birds themselves.